Hey guys, I was out riding my e10 the other day and everything was going along great, and then all of a sudden, out of the blue, the bike just cut off. At first I thought maybe I had hit it accidentally with my hand. I have done that, not very often, but I have done that on occasion. So anyway, I got off the bike, reset it, got it going again, everything was fine. I rode along for about another mile and then it cut off again. At that point I became suspect that I had a problem, so I started heading back to the car, and with 2 or 3 more cutoffs I was able to get back to the car pretty much on my own power. Anyway, I got the bike home and did a pretty deep dive into figuring out what the problem was. I think I've got it solved. I took it out and rode it about 20 miles, no cutoff. Really pushed it hard to try to make it happen again. Never could get it to cut off on its own. So I feel pretty good that I got the issue resolved. So that's what I want to share with you today. I want to go into the details of what I did. So let's get into it. The first thing I normally do when I ever have an electrical problem on one of my e-bikes is I panic. If the thing's got an electrical problem, it's pretty critical. I mean, if the motor's not working, I mean, it's just not good. So, true to form, the minute I realized I had a problem, I was pretty much in panic mode. But, as I thought about it some and calmed down a little bit, I realized that first thing I needed to think about doing was just systematically go through, all the different electrical components on the bike where I could have a problem. But, and this is a huge but, I had a huge advantage here in that I have 2 batteries for the e10. And the second battery, the battery that I bought after I bought the bike, has always had a little bit of a rattle when it's been installed on the bike. And the battery that was installed in the bike when it started cutting off was the battery that rattles. So once calmer heads prevailed, I thought that maybe the problem is with that battery. So I installed the OEM battery in the bike and rode it down the same trails that I'd ridden the bike with the rattling battery, and sure enough, the bike did not cut off. At the places where I'd had problems, it rode right through it, and I never had a cutoff the whole time. So at that point, I realized that most likely the problem was in that secondary battery. The first thing I did was I said, hey, I've got to eliminate the rattle in the battery. I mean, clearly that probably is somehow tied into the problem. So I have some 2-sided tape here and an old inner tube that I use to get the rubber. It's pretty thick, and basically I use this to to put on the battery so that when I press it up into the chamber in the e10, the battery will be more secure inside the bike to hopefully eliminate the rattle. Okay, here are the 2 batteries for the bike, and on the left side is the OEM battery, and on the right side is the the secondary battery. And what I've done here, I'll show you. I've installed using that inner tube and that tape on the the alternative battery here. I put tape, the 2-sided tape under this, and then cut a square here using the inner tube, and then to help brace it side by side, I put I cut a long strip of the inner tube here, as you can see, and put it around the battery, and then that way once I did that, this battery is now very secure in the bike. There's no rattle from the battery, and there's no rattle from the cover of the battery. It's in there very, very, very tight. On the OEM battery, I've not completed it yet, but I did basically just something to get it tight inside the frame, even though it wasn't rattling. And I've not put the strip around it, which I will do. But those are the two batteries, and that's what I did to eliminate the rattle. So I got the batteries sort of updated, if you will, with the rubber and the tape, and then I inserted them in the bike, and I went out and rode the bike again, hopeful that eliminating the movement of the battery would eliminate the sporadic turnoffs, and it didn't. Basically, the batteries weren't rattling. The OEM battery never cut off. The secondary battery did the same thing it was doing before. It would go for a little while and then it would turn off. So clearly, just eliminating the rattle did not eliminate the problem. So my next step was to look and see what would cause the cutoff where the battery connects to the frame. So on the left side, this is inside the e10 frame where the battery connects to the motor, and on the right side is the end of the battery. And as you can see, those connection points that are pointed, that's how the two connect together. So these are the tools I'm going to use in my next step. The key thing are the razor blade, the very small screwdriver, and I'm going to be focused on working on the end of the battery. Okay, so what I'm going to do in this step is I'm going to try to get the contact points in the battery a little bit closer together. And I'm going to do the same procedure for each of the 4 contact points, but I'm going to only show one of them in this, but I just replicate this process on all 4 of them. So the first thing you need to do is just stick the razor blade in there, and you need the razor blade because they're on very tight. And once you get the razor blade in there and you get a little opening, then you stick the tip of the screwdriver in, and once you get the screwdriver in, you just pry it over a little bit, just very, very gently, not too aggressively. The next step is I'm going to go in and apply electrical grease to all the connections. These photographs show how I apply the electrical grease. I'm just putting a very small amount in each one of the little sockets, and then I'm spreading it around with a small brush. And then in these pictures, I'm doing the same thing to the contact point inside the frame, putting a little grease on each of the contacts and then spreading it on with a brush. So I hope that documents clearly enough so that you can follow what I did to fix the problem on my bike. I believe in working through it, I believe the problem came about because the battery was loose and it was rattling around inside the frame. What it did, over time, it bent the connections on the battery. And once the connections on the battery had been bent, and I'm not talking about bent a whole lot, but just a little bit, once those connections were bent, there will be a time when the battery gets just in the right position where it will lose contact with the motor. And once the motor and the battery are separated, of course the motor just turns off and there's no way to restart it. So I think now that I've eliminated the rattle and now that I've pushed the pins back out a little bit, I think I have a good firm connection, and I think the likelihood that the pins will get bent have been greatly minimized by having the battery very snugly inserted in the frame with those rubber shims. And I'm pretty optimistic that I'm not going to have this problem going forward. But if you're experiencing the bike periodically cutting off, or if you've got a rattle, I would strongly encourage you to go in and put some shims in to eliminate the rattle, And if the bike's cutting off, I'd encourage you to look closely at the process I went through to try to eliminate that from happening. So anyway, I hope I've given you guys something to think about, and I'll see you at the top.